Chapter 2066. In the Alliance Command, almost every screen was playing a similar scene. Purple, red, blue and green demons were rushing toward the Alliance army on the monitor screen. Or they were hitting sections of reinforced towering walls. Or they were catching up with the Alliance's tanks, trampling the Alliance's war machines and the soldiers inside into pieces. Or they were charging into the Alliance's foxholes, dragging the Alliance soldiers out of the infantry pits and tearing them to pieces. In the sea of ominous green evil light, the flags that symbolized the Pantheon and the Alliance were constantly being annihilated. Occasionally they would reappear because of the arrival of reinforcements. Overall, the Alliance was collapsing on all fronts. Almost every battlefield was playing a similar battle. If the Alliance army had enough firepower, they could destroy the main force of the demons before the Burning Legion opened 100 medium-sized teleportation portals. Then the Alliance army would definitely win, and it would not be surprising if they could win without casualties. On the other hand, once the Alliance army arrived too late, then when the number of demons exceeded 100,000, the situation would become out of control. Often, it was necessary to mobilize 2 mobile fleets to support the demons in order to extinguish the ever-increasing demon army. Everyone knew that even if the humans fought against the demons, they would not be able to win even if the ratio of casualties was 1-to-1 or even 1-to-10. Billions of demons were twisting the void, waiting to kill. This number alone was enough to make the Alliance generals despair. What was more annoying was that this number could not be announced to the ordinary people and soldiers. Otherwise, the morale might collapse before the war began. Although on every front, the Alliance army was still carrying out unyielding resistance. The earth-shaking battle cries mixed with the holy will of the Holy Knights seemed to converge into an invisible wall, blocking the Burning Legion's advance. But the situation was as the great leader of the Alliance Duque had predicted. The balance of victory on the battlefield was tilting, not to the side of Azeroth and the Pantheon. Instead, the situation was inevitably slipping into the worst possible situation. They were faced with an army of demons that could not be killed and could be resurrected again. No matter how powerful the defense line was, it would still gradually become precarious under this rogue offensive. The Tomb of Sargeras. Kill Jaden roared arrogantly, mocking the Guardians and the Alliance army heroes. It's useless. Titan's lackey. Insignificant mortals. Your resistance is destined to become embellishments on the army's achievements. Your struggles will only become a topic of conversation after the battle. No matter what you do, what awaits you is only eternal despair. Hee hee. This golden sentence perfectly reflected the disdain of the owner of the laughter. William laughed heartily. If the Burning Legion is so confident, why are you panicking? Just be a good chess player and watch us, the chess pieces, struggle. Isn't that enough? Why lower yourself to fight with us? As a powerhouse from the Alliance who had followed Duque for the longest time, William's trust in Duque was akin to blind worship. He knew that he was here as a cover. Duque had even told him that he and the other heroes of the Alliance would be abandoned at the last moment. Even so, he was willing to accept it. William had asked Duque, "Is this for the victory of Azeroth?" "Yes, for the victory of Azeroth." After getting the answer he wanted, William quietly replied, "Very well. When that time comes, Anduin will be the king of Stormwind. If Stormwind is still around." They had seen through life and death and abandoned all distracting thoughts. The heroes of the Alliance exerted 200% of their combat power. Their performance was even more eye-catching than the Titan Guardians. Kill Jaden was infuriated by the fact that they knew they were likely to die but were still trying to bite the bullet. However, these guys in front of him were doing nothing but stalling for time in order to stall him, the commander of the army. It really drove him crazy. Odin, Torim, Hodier, Freya, and Mimiron made up a total of 5 Guardians, plus a group of wilderness demigods and Alliance heroes. If it wasn't for the fact that Kill Jaden's strength had increased with Sargeras' resurrection, and could even recover part of his vitality, he wouldn't have been able to withstand this combination at all. At this moment, all the powerhouses, no, all the intelligent creatures on Azeroth, regardless of whether they were demons from the Alliance army or the army, felt the birth of a variable. Clang. It was the sound of something breaking in their hearts. At this moment, everyone felt that the laws of this world were deviating in some way. Some evil power was leaving them in fear, as if something new and unknown was descending. This was a special power that came from within the planet. Its irresistible power was changing everything in this world. Karazhan. Standing on the highest level of Karazhan, in the eye of the magic formation that was the core of the weave, Khadgar's eyes suddenly widened. It's here. I got the signal. Master has succeeded. All weave elemental messengers and weave soul mages, act according to plan. Weave. This was the communication system of the entire Alliance army. It carried the spellcasting needs of millions of mages. It was the core of the entire Azeroth Alliance army. This time it displayed another effect: space blockade. On the planet, all the powerhouses felt their hearts skip a beat. A circle of ripples spread from the depths of the sea with the broken islands as the center and spread in all directions. At this moment, all the Eridar mages on the entire planet who were dealing with the teleportation gate had their connections with the Twisted Nether and Argus forcefully cut off. At the hundreds of landing points on the entire planet, every Void Lord widened their eyes in horror. From this moment onwards, all the magic communication channels were no longer receiving any response. It was as if the command center of the Burning Legion had been destroyed. Impossible? The lords cried out in shock. The Twisted Nether, Argus, and every teleportation point built for the convenience of the Burning Legion no longer sent demonic soldiers. This situation had never happened in the 25,000 years that the Burning Legion had roamed the universe. This situation was also noticed by the frontline commanders of the Alliance. Just as they were in shock, wondering if this was a trap set by the demons, a piece of exciting news came from the Alliance headquarters. Everyone in the Alliance, all the soldiers of the Alliance who are fighting on the front lines. The Alliance Throne Conference has now released a confirmed piece of news. The Alliance Commander Duke Marcus and Deputy Commander Sylvanus Windrunner have just destroyed the teleportation center on the Burning Legion's base, Argus. Chapter 2067. Commander Marcus is launching a fierce attack on the fallen Titan, Argus, who is guarding the planet. As long as we kill the Nirvanic, we can make the Burning Legion's most powerful Void Lords and Demon Elites lose their ability to resurrect. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. All of a sudden, the tens of millions of soldiers in the Alliance all shouted together as if they were on steroids. Long live the Alliance! Long live Azeroth! Long live Commander Marcus! The soldiers shouted loudly as if they wanted to turn every bit of air in their lungs into cries of resistance, pouring it out and roaring it out. While shouting, the soldiers on the front line poured firepower on the demons in a fanatical state. This news was too exciting. Before the arrival of the army, every person in Azeroth had been instilled with the dangers of the army by the Alliance's propaganda agency. There were videos of the destruction of Draenor as teaching materials, the words and deeds of the Draenei who had lost their homes, and the stories of the older generation who had been ravaged by the demon army led by Archimonde. While people were determined to fight, they couldn't help but feel worried, uneasy, and afraid. Especially when the army really launched an all-out attack. Everyone stepped onto the battlefield with the determination to die. Wives sent their husbands off. Old people sent their sons off. Children sent their fathers off. Men were all on the battlefield and there were women. Many towns had almost become empty cities, and the only ones left in the shelters were those who were too old to carry guns, women with big bellies, and children who were just learning to speak. In a situation where there was no way out, everyone was twisted into a rope. But when their last hope would turn into despair, no one could say for sure. Unexpectedly, in this moment of despair, it was the great hero Duke Marcus who had saved Azeroth time and time again who stood up. He used a strategy that transcended the mortal world to give the other party's teleportation hub a hard blow. This time, so what if the Burning Legion had billions of troops? If they were all stuck in the distorted void and couldn't come out, then they were just a string of meaningless numbers. If the only remaining leader of the Burning Legion, killed Jaden, had any mishaps, or if Sargera's resurrection failed, then it would be fun. Oh. The allied army soldiers shouted and launched a fierce counterattack, killing every demon's portal. To a rational commander, there was a possibility that the enemy's teleportation situation would change. They should seize the opportunity to completely destroy all the Burning Legion's teleportation portals in Azeroth. At the very least, they would be able to turn the tables on a strategic level. As for whether they could deal with Argus the Terminator, that was a matter for the Alliance heroes. Counterattack. Fire all the cannonballs out for me. What was the logistics team doing? I need 100 units of ammunition to be sent to the front line as soon as possible. Marshal Bridget Abendis yelled without the slightest hint of ladylike demeanor. Whether it was Bridget, Tyler, Alfred, or old Mograine, these frontline commanders all seized the opportunity. In Sargera's tomb, killed Jaden was furious. Impossible. That little bastard, Duque, he only controlled the teleportation hub of Argus' burning throne. How did he manage to close the warped nether portal? Tarim laughed and gave Kill Jaden a thunderous hammer. As he smashed the egg, he revealed a very human-like smile. Guess my ass. Kil'jaeden's lungs were about to explode. In fact, not to mention Tarim, even the Alliance leaders didn't know how Duque managed to defeat Argus and even destroy the distorted void. It didn't matter if they didn't know. They were happy even if they were mischievous. In Sargeras' tomb, without the endless support of the Void Lords, the Allied army with more experts and more elite members suddenly fought with vigor. For example, Odin and Tarim weren't good at fighting protracted battles. The strategic needs forced them to take it easy and use their own strength. Once the portal was closed, they became the most dazzling stars on the battlefield without holding back. Kill him. Kil'jaeden cursed. Suddenly, two Void Lords rushed forward, trying to severely injure Odin, the most eyesore guardian. Not only because Odin was annoying, but also because almost all of Odin's attacks were of the holy attribute. Unfortunately, Odin wasn't a lone commander. He might not be able to command his former colleagues, but his lackeys were quite powerful. Heimdall, Odin's gatekeeper in the Valhalla, was also quite powerful as a watchman second only to the Guardians. With a bleeding sweep, he directly beat an Abyss Lord to the point of vomiting blood and retreating. Demon Wolf Fenrir pounced and bit a Dreadlord like lightning. No matter how that guy struggled, it moved its strong limbs and dragged that guy back to the Allied army. Tortola the Tortoise God was very eye-catching, pressing down with his light body that weighed over 1,000 tons. Yes, the Dreadlord had become Dreadlord paste. Even dogs wouldn't eat that thing that affected the appearance of the city. Odin activated Radiant Storm, rolling up thousands of holy energy pulse beams. The golden light was like the rising sun. Any demon below the Lord level who touched it would become a corpse. There was no second outcome. Even Kil'jaeden was at a disadvantage. This level of holy light was no different from strong acid to him. In an instant, a series of bucket-sized blisters appeared on his red skin. Against a demon commander as large as the egg, this attack was not light either. The number of demon lords around Kil'jaeden who could help him quickly decreased. On the other side, in the burning throne on planet Argus, everyone received the latest news from the portal on Azeroth. Even the portal to the twisting nether had been sealed. Tyron was curious. Duque, how did you do it? Argus and the portal to the twisting nether aren't from the same system, right? Duque smirked. Do you remember the one I used in the twisting nether? Tyron was stunned and became embarrassed. Which one? Duque knew that Tyron had misunderstood. He forced himself to be serious. 10,000 years ago, I used the recoil from the Well of Eternity to blow up the largest demon fortress in the twisting nether. This made Sargeras and Kil'jaeden extremely sad, but it also led to the creation of a series of new measures. Jaina understood. For example, they transferred the soul cores of themselves and the strongest group of high-level Void Lords to Argus? Yes. To prevent their own portals from being used again, all the portals in the twisting nether are equipped with a countermeasure. That is, if they encounter a certain amount of reverse energy, the portal will automatically close. If the energy exceeds a predetermined threshold, the portal will self-destruct to ensure the safety of the twisting nether. Chapter 2068. Everyone suddenly understood. Jaina's face was full of surprise and admiration. You deliberately used excessive elements to blast those portals just to cause an overreaction in the twisted nether? A proud smile appeared on Duque's face. Yes. According to the intelligence of the Eridar twins, once the portal triggers a high-energy countercurrent alarm, the portal will automatically close and will not be able to open for the next 24 hours. If it is blown up, it will not be able to open again for 72 hours. Even the 4 matriarchs of the Destruction Witch Guild cannot change the situation. Unless Kil'jaeden comes. Just now, Du blew up all the portals leading to the Twisted Nether, which naturally triggered the highest level of alarm in the Twisted Nether. Duque couldn't stop smirking. Once the fortress was blown up, Duque would be afraid of him for 10,000 years. The safety measures that the Burning Legion had taken out of caution were completely used by Du 72 hours? Aha, it won't even take 24 hours and this battle will be over. Who cares about your tens of billions of troops? Shoot them all on the wall. Oh no, suffocate them in the Twisted Nether. The Alliance heroes were temporarily absent except for Riadaline. It could be said that the main force was still present. Duque looked at Illidan, who was still unhappy, and ignored him. Everyone, let's go and end this war that has lasted for 25,000 years. In Antorus' burning throne, in addition to the 2 fallen titans, there was also a group of army powerhouses. But there was one special existence, and that was the 5th brother's life-giver Iona. Meow meow meow? Isn't this name and title very familiar? Yes, she was the wife of the Pantheon's boss, Amonthul Titan Iona. Strictly speaking, this fifth brother was not the real Iona. 25,000 years ago, during the betrayal war of Sargeras, even though Iona fell under the sword of Sargeras, Iona's life essence escaped the control of the Dark Titan. For thousands of years, she hid alone in the stars. Unfortunately, not long ago, the army finally found the hiding place of this essence and captured it. Once this soul essence was corrupted by the matriarchs, Iona's nature and life force would be distorted and used by the army, making the army truly invincible. This was not an exaggeration. The living examples were Odor's Watcher Freya and the Red Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, who had received power from Iona. As for the former, as long as she didn't deal with her lackeys, she would be able to recover endlessly. The latter was almost the same. She could heal almost infinitely, and was definitely a meat shield among the dragon aspects. Originally, the demons were already shameless enough to believe in Brother Spring. If the demons could recover their HP at a rate of 10% per second, then they wouldn't even need to fight for a long time. Iona's soul essence was located in a very special space within the Burning Throne. This place didn't seem to fit in with the Burning Throne style. The place was decorated in a classic Titan style. Birds were chirping and flowers were fragrant. It was filled with natural greenery. According to the Eridar Gemini's intelligence, the matriarchs wanted to use Space Rend and Space Shackle to wear down the excess energy of the essence before proceeding with the corrosion. However, as the Allied forces broke in, the Burning Legion would definitely send out their elites to destroy this essence in advance to prevent the Allied forces from getting any help, right? Duque knew very well that Iona's essence wasn't a boss. To be precise, this level was a tower defense game. Almost as soon as the Allied army reached the courtyard that seemed to be exposed outside, they saw a Burning Legion battleship charging over. The Paraxis. Duke glanced at the Burning Legion's universe battleship that was extremely streamlined and had the style of a Titan. He calmly said, Get ready for what?" Beside Duque, Queen Sylvie let out a cold snort. In this part of the sky, a huge tornado suddenly appeared out of nowhere. In the middle of the rotating gale, it was as if an eye of lightning had opened up. Then dark clouds covered the sky. As soon as the dark clouds that quickly occupied the entire sky appeared, hundreds of lightning bolts shot out and bombarded the Paraxis. The lightning bolts that seemed to be able to tear apart space struck the bow of the warship. The continuous purplish-blue lightning made the lush green space pale in comparison. The Paraxis seemed unwilling to retreat just like that. It propped up a dazzling green shield. Obviously, the demons inside were prepared to risk their lives to complete the mission under the strict orders of the four matriarchs. But unfortunately, Queen Sylvie pulled her bow, and a silver light arrow flashed on the bowstring of Solidar Stars of Fury. It was a gorgeous light that looked like a comet falling to the ground. Duque smiled bitterly. He saw that arrow. This was no ordinary silver compressed air arrow. It was simply a super powerful light arrow that had at least 1% of the wind element on this planet condensed. Queen Sylvie said coldly, "Explode." A silver light that spanned the entire green space, like a fortress cannon, pierced through the body of the Burning Legion's warship. The warship's head was pierced, and it seemed to have triggered the explosion of the ammo storage or energy compartment inside. The huge warship was blown into two, and the broken parts turned into countless metal fragments. Accompanied by the fireworks-like evil flames, it slowly fell from the sky. Queen Sylvie tilted her head, and there was a hint of mockery on her proud but beautiful face. "That's it." Duque's cheek muscles twitched. "Damn, Queen Sylvie is so cool. I really ked this long-legged elf girl countless times, and she even gave birth to a baby for me? It feels a little unreal." After releasing Iona's essence, a certain Titan hiding in the Pantheon was the first to receive the news. Outside the essence was a lush green tree, and at this moment, the tree suddenly grew tender leaves. Countless small green leaves formed the upper half of Iona's body. "Thank you, Duke Marcus. I didn't expect your plan to go so smoothly." "You're welcome. You flatter me." Duque remained humble. "Can I trouble you to open a portal and send my essence to the following coordinates? If I get this essence back now, I can provide support to the coalition army on the battlefields of Argus and Azeroth at the same time." "Oh, that's good." Duque did not refuse. He immediately opened a large portal according to the coordinates given by Iona and sent the entire tree over. Perhaps it was an ancient teleportation portal that the Pantheon had prepared, or perhaps it was a backup plan of the Pantheon. Duque did not care. He was more concerned about something more practical. Less than 5 minutes after sending Iona away, before they reached the sixth boss of the Burning Throne, a new portal opened not far from Duque. Chapter 2069. Amonthul's voice then came. Thank you, loyal ally of the Pantheon. From now on, as long as you keep the portal from this spatial node open, Iona will be able to give the Alliance members the strongest life recovery ability. Even if they only have one breath left, they will be alive and kicking in the next moment. Duque sensed it and found that the other end of the portal was not where the Pantheon was. It was more like a relay station or like the wall-crawling program that he saw on Twitter and YouTube before he transmigrated. It could transmit life recovery natural energy over without being discovered by the Burning Legion. The big boss of the Pantheon was really ruthless and silent. He said he would give Brother Chun blessings and he did so just like that. Almost at the same time, the entire planet Azeroth felt that the Pantheon was a great fortress. If it was said that the large number of Titan creations joining the Allied army and the large distribution of god equipment made the Alliance feel that the Pantheon Temple was only at this level, then the following scene made them feel that the Titans of the Pantheon Temple were truly like gods. Suddenly, an emerald green natural energy hovered over the thousands of battlefields in Azeroth. Whenever any of the Alliance soldiers was injured on the battlefield, even if it was a fatal injury from being cut in half by a demon, a ball of green energy would instantly descend. Gotcha. The injured body was completely wrapped in a green stream of light, and the body that was split into two pieces was mixed back together like glue. In the next second, a living dead stood on the spot in a daze. His broken armor told him that the fatal injury he had suffered was not a dream. The demon opposite him was dumbfounded. Unwilling to give up, the demon clawed again. Slap. This time, the miserable Alliance soldier was torn from the left shoulder to the right abdomen. He died again. However, with Iona's god-level healing energy, it was really difficult to die even if he wanted to. With a whoosh, the Alliance soldier was resurrected again. He yelled as he picked up his weapon and fired at the demon. Impossible. This time, it was the demons who felt like they were going to collapse. Originally, having their reinforcements cut off was enough to make them panic. If they were to encounter the tens of millions of Allied troops who all believed in Brother Spring, how could they fight properly? Although the demons of the Burning Legion soon realized that they could still kill the feeble foes by blowing up the heads of the Allied army soldiers, how was it 10 times more difficult to inflict fatal wounds everywhere compared to having to blow up their heads? The Alliance command quickly announced that Duque had saved a ball of essence from the Pantheon Titan Iona. Iona had decided to use the power of this ball of essence to grant everyone a super strong recovery ability. Time is very limited. Everyone, please seize the opportunity and annihilate the demons in one fell swoop. Other than Mimirin's mechanical army, Odin's soul warrior Wagery, and Uther's scourge army, Iona's essence would be effective on any living being. The Allied soldiers became even more unscrupulous after being pumped up. In the Burning Throne, with Queen Sylvanas leading the way, Duque felt that his harem was a little restless. Jaina stood up. Duque, you've given me greater authority over the weave. I can control a lot of Argus frost elements. Now I have Iona's power to support me. According to the information provided by the Eridar twins, why don't you give the sixth to me? Tyrant also stood up. In that case, why don't you give the seventh to me? The sixth was the soul hunter Imenal. As the infamous lackey of the Burning Legion, Imenal could chase down his prey across the universe. With the help of various devices and traps, Imenal had never missed a bounty. And of course he did not intend to ruin his perfect record because of this recent business deal. The seventh was Kingaro's. The design ideas of all the army's war machines came from Kingaro's evil mind. Obsessed with making tools of slaughter, Kingaro's fused his body with the production equipment in order to produce more efficient machines of destruction. Following the orders of the army's Dark Master, Kingaro's hot genius brain came up with new superweapons one after another. For example, the Fell Reaver and the Fell Cannons were all his handiwork. In all fairness, the sixth and seventh were not too strong. Duque was completely speechless. He did not know when it started, but his harem seemed to have one more standard. There were too many girls with long breasts and perky butts. Want to join Marcus' harem? First of all, you have to be able to fight. What standard? You have to at least be qualified to join the Alliance of Heroes. This almost public standard wiped out 99% of the world's moaning monsters. Otherwise, Duque would not be able to deal with tens of thousands of moaning monsters with just one divine sword. Raising the standard of entry into the harem was a good thing. But the women in the harem were too good at fighting, which was also a pain in the ass for Duque. Out of love for his women, Duque instinctively wanted to refuse. But he suddenly felt that something was wrong. His skin seemed to be attacked by a sudden drop in temperature. Was it an illusion? No, the goosebumps all over his body were definitely not an illusion. The emotions in the eyes of the heroine standing next to him could be clearly seen even in the slightly dim light of the burning throne. It was as if their pupils were glowing. When he met their gazes, Duke heard countless illusory voices. "Let me have a good time. Didn't you always say that this is the last chance?" "It's the last chance. Maybe we can only carry children every day in the future. Just think of it as our last willfulness." Duque focused and looked. They were still smiling like flowers, firmly supporting his lovers. But when he was stunned, he felt like he was hearing things. "Kill them. This old lady's bow is already thirsting for blood. Get some achievements, and when I'm bored in the future, I can brag about it for the rest of my life." The women in the harem had an unusually sweet smile on their faces. Anyone could feel the murderous intent behind the smile. The intense emotions that made people mistakenly think that space was distorted were simply a terrifying vortex, raging endlessly. Even Illidan, an outsider, shivered and unconsciously stood a few steps away. Duque grimaced, "Oh my God. It seems that if I don't let them out this time, they will hate me for the rest of my life. So, if I had known earlier, I would have been at ease with a bunch of vase girls at home. This is great. Anyway, with Brother Chun's blessing, nothing should go wrong." Duke was full of righteousness, with his head held high and chest out to show that he was not afraid of his wife. "Yes, time is of the essence. Sargeras might revive in the next second. I announce in the name of the Commander-in-Chief of the Argus Coalition Army, Illidan, to deal with Agrima the Avenger. Sylvanas and Vasht will deal with Argus the Terminator with me. As for the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th targets of the Burning Throne, I'll leave them to you. Tyron, you distribute the forces." Chapter 2070. Tyron was not Duque's first woman. The first was Aurelia. But Tyron was the most long-lasting. She had never heard of a relationship lasting for 10,000 years, especially when there were two outstanding childhood sweethearts who had waited for her for 10,000 years. Her sincerity alone was worthy of all women's respect. Even the proud Queen Sylvanas acknowledged that Tyron was the big sister. Tyron calmly assigned the tasks of the women. She had suggested that Jaina deal with OL6, while she dealt with OL7. The rest would deal with OL8, which was the 4 matriarchs of Shivala. On the surface, it seemed a little reckless, but Jaina was probably the fastest to finish the battle, as she had obviously leveled up. This kind of mysterious leveling up was obviously due to nepotism. Tyron knew that she would not have a problem dealing with OL7. Unless the remaining sisters, along with Vanessa, Sally Whitemane and Solarian, could not withstand the matriarch's attacks and were instantly killed, there would not be a problem. Then let's do this. The hero team quickly attacked. In reality, the 4 matriarchs had already gathered the remaining leader-level combatants. Defending the checkpoints one by one was like sending food to the enemies who had a large number of demigods. Unfortunately, the Burning Throne had clearly lost the initiative. First, the purposely provoked commotion had lost the commanding council and the 2 hounds. Then, the Terminators had run out of the throne, only to be destroyed by the enemy using the entire planet's fire element. They had lost 3 groups of leaders in one go. They had hesitated for a moment and could not bear to withdraw their manpower from the teleportation hub. In the end, they had lost again and again. At this point, the 4 matriarchs were about to piss their pants. Putting aside the fact that they could not defend the Burning Throne, even if they could, just the fact that the teleportation portal's hub had been destroyed and occupied by the enemy was enough for Chief Sa to skin them alive. If not for the fact that their soul cores were under the watch of Argus the Terminator, they would have fled immediately. What was more hateful was that they could only brace themselves and gather their forces to resist. Not only did they have Soul Hunter Eminar and Kingalo's retreat, they also had the 8th boss, Varimitha, catch up. Varimitha, as one of the Dreadlords who commanded the army in the Third Great War, Varimitha was unable to stop the Lich King's rebellion. In this life, he had the misfortune of allying with the Sun King, Anastrian, and prayed for power one last time before he shamefully failed. In order to punish him for his mistake after his death, Varimitha, who relied on the soul core stored in Argus to resurrect, was tortured by the witch saboteur. These malicious matriarchs had stripped him of his flesh and reason, leaving him with only the desire to take revenge on the mortals who had caused him to lose everything. To put it bluntly, he was just a slave beast with combat power. However, deploying troops was not an easy task. Firstly, the Allied forces were advancing too quickly. Secondly, the distance between the leaders was too far. It couldn't be helped. Every demon lord was a prideful person. Unless they were close friends or sisters like the Eridar twins, no one would be willing to stay beside a colleague with ulterior motives. This was the way the higher-ups of the army interacted with each other. Of course, there was also an exception, such as the Commander's Council or the Witch Alliance. Unfortunately, with the support of Queen Sylvanas' group, Wind Manipulation, the allied heroes were completely flying. The smaller enemies were left to Illidan's demon hunters to deal with. Queen Sylvanas casually shot an arrow, and the world fell silent again. The heroes had just passed the defense zone where the seventh brother was and caught up with Eminar and Kingalos in one go. Jaina and Tyrande looked at each other and immediately attacked. Eminar, who was retreating, suddenly realized something. When he turned around, he saw a blue-robed figure in the distant sky. There was a flash of light, and a dazzling beam of light shot from that direction, shining directly on him. That light was very similar to the one that the Balrog Smadron had used with the fire element of Argus to destroy the Garossi Terminator in one move. Eminar was scared out of his wits. That was a god-level attack that even the Terminator did not dare to touch. How could his small body withstand it? He could not help but turn around subconsciously, just in time to see a web of elemental laws that he had never seen before hanging high in the air. It was no longer a hidden elemental flow that mortals could not see, but a network of clearly visible veins, each of which was a terrifying elemental path that could not be used up even if 10 Breaking Dawn mages wantonly squandered the elements. At that moment, in Eminar's eyes, all the elemental veins were shining brightly. Then, magic beams shot out from the nodes where these veins intersected. These beams of light flashed and disappeared, staying on his retina for less than 1,000th of a second. In that instant, the wide corridor that could allow 100 horses to pass side by side became bright. It was the explosion of frost, fire, and arcane magic that ignited the corridor. 3 different types of ultra-high purity elements in the same space produced an exaggerated reaction similar to nuclear fission. Finally, it turned into a strange 3-colored flame. Eminar was famous for being a Void Duke who liked to use tools. He had a lot of special and powerful gadgets: stun gun, hypnotic canister, pulse grenade, hellfire arrow, but he was shocked to find that he could not use any of these weapons that he had been so proud of for thousands of years. He only had time to groan before he felt himself submerged in a storm of elemental energy. Soul Hunter Eminar had been killed by Jaina Proudmoore. Jaina had taken care of her opponent first, but did not forget to be mischievous. She floated in the air, holding up the 2 corners of her robe, and performed a ladle-like bow in the air. "Sister Tyrande, I'm sorry, I'll be going to the next city first." Tyrande seemed to snort in dissatisfaction, but in reality she was just venting the frustration in her heart. Their opponent was also known as the leader, and Tyrande had obviously accidentally picked a tough bone. A demonic inventor like Kingaros was even more disgusting than Mimiron. Not only was he good at fighting, but he also had many tricks up his sleeve. The most annoying thing was his group of robots: Garossi Annihilator, Garossi Slaughterer, and Garossi Destroyer. Although these smaller robots were not as sturdy as the first boss of the Burning Throne, Garossi Terminator, they each had their own unique characteristics such as thick skin and thick flesh. Kingaros, on the other hand, had transformed himself into a metal monster. Chapter 2071. The Annihilator's flame missiles, the Slayer's burst attacks, the Destroyer's void energy blast. All of these attacks made Tyrande feel like she was in a difficult situation. With Iona's natural recovery ability, Tyrande would not die, and her injuries would at most be bruises. However, her clothes would always be burnt, and this made Tyrande feel rather annoyed. However, after she became Duke's servant, her attacks changed drastically. She no longer used the traditional divine arts of Starfall and natural recovery. Instead, she used her bow and arrows as support for her elemental attacks. Against robots that had no vital points or flesh, Tyrande was at a huge disadvantage. However, Kiaros was a very special fellow. He was different from the information he had received. It seemed that he had recently modified his biological structure, allowing his body to share life with his robot creations. Tyrande's attacks on Kiaros did not seem to give him any time to breathe. Instead, more and more Kiaros robots rushed over to help. "My dear Jaina, I'm afraid I'll need your help this time. Otherwise, I'll have to team up with Duque to deal with you next time." Looking at Tyrande's smiling face, no one would ever know that the Tyrande of this life had been transformed into a female driver by Duque in the ancient war. A female driver could not afford to get hurt when racing. It was just like how Dumuk loved to watch Yunfei drive before he transmigrated. who knew that there would be a self-proclaimed pure and virtuous cat called Shibe, something who drove even more crazily. Jaina shuddered. She knew that if she was attacked by Duque and Tyrant, she would not be able to get out of bed for a few days. Oh, what is Big Sister saying? You're treating me like an outsider. It was Big Sister who took care of the enemy first. I'm just here to pick up a few bones. Jaina said words that even she did not believe, and decisively surrendered to Tyrant. Tyrant threw a, "If you dare say this out loud" look, and smiled as she faced the enemy together with Jaina. To be honest, it would not be a problem for Tyrant to take care of Kyaros and his toys alone. But if this dragged on, Tyrant was afraid that something would happen to her sisters. In the harem, which one of them wasn't Duque's treasure? If in the last darkness before dawn, because of her willfulness, caused the death of any of her sisters, Duke would never forgive her for the rest of his life. After the two of them set off a wild wave of elements, King Garros typed GG amidst his screams. On the other side, the matriarchs of the Saboteur Witch Union did something that Duque did not expect. He did not know if it was a power struggle or a test, but they actually split up. Originally, the Burning Throne was a structure that connected all the way to the end. There were no forks in the road or shortcuts to speak of. When Duque, Illidan, Vashj, and Queen Sylvie rushed over, the four matriarchs actually hid in a branch road that was almost a dead end. Obviously, the matriarchs did not want to directly confront Duque and his gang. Instead, it was Varimitha's who was left in the Coven's room. Seeing the arrival of Duque and the other three, the once intelligent Dreadlord leader showed a fanatical expression. A long tongue nimbly rolled in his mouth full of sharp teeth, and the pair of huge bat wings full of holes on his back kept flapping. Apart from his huge size and appearance, he looked like a vicious dog that saw a bone. He rushed straight towards Duque and raised his right hand at the same time. Embrace of the Nether Spirit. It was a powerful dark magic of the curse element. Once an ordinary hero was hit by this, his life and soul would be forcibly transformed into shadow energy within a few seconds. While he was heavily injured, the curse would be passed on to another mortal victim around him. If one was not careful, this thing could cause the entire hero team to fall into a plague-like curse cycle within a minute, and finally die tragically while wailing in pain. Unfortunately, this former boss with no brains to speak of had found the wrong target to attack. Without waiting for Duque to say anything, Vashj was the first to rush forward. The movement of the snake tail swaying and charging quickly gave the onlookers the feeling that it was like moving clouds and flowing water. Only the people involved could truly feel the horror of Vashj's speed. Perhaps compared to the top agility-type demigods, Vashj's speed was not fast, but with Vashj's water special effect, it was completely different. Illidan frowned because he sensed that the surrounding space was completely filled with the water domain. His own people passing through it naturally did not feel anything special. The enemy's words were like being mixed into cement that was about to solidify. Every movement became extremely slow and heavy. This kind of overwhelming domain power was obviously just right to restrain Varimitha, who was not clear-headed. He forcefully opened his arms as if he wanted to break free from the suppression of this domain. At this time, Vashj's figure disappeared from his field of vision, leaving only an afterimage. Only Duque and the others who were watching from the side caught a trace of the tremor in the space. If this was the deep sea, then Vashj would be a hunter that had jumped up from the deepest part of the sea to hunt her prey. Both of Varimitha's hooves were suddenly wrapped up by a long green snake tail. By the time he reacted, his body had turned into a wooden stake that was tied up by the snake's tail over and over again. In the reflection of his fanatical pupils, a snake-haired female figure appeared. A bow that was stretched to the extreme with two cold water elemental arrows on it, pressed against his eyelids at 0 distance. There was nothing he could do. He could only watch as the sharp arrowheads filled his entire field of vision. It was not until his vision turned pitch black that Varimitha, who had almost lost all consciousness, heard the sharp, ear-piercing sound of the bowstring. Thump. The former leader of the Dreadlords, Varimitha, had fallen once again. As expected, Duke Marcus, who had once caused the most terrible loss to the army, is not someone we can stop. Just leave them to the last two. Even if they degenerate into watchdogs, a Titan is still a Titan. The matriarchs whispered among themselves, shocked and laughing evilly. The supreme power represented by the word Titan was something that mortals could not understand or look up to. Furthermore, in the past 25,000 years, the two Titans of Argus had never been truly tested. Only Titans can deal with Titans. This concept had already been deeply rooted in the hearts of all existences in the universe. However, they could let Duque and the others in, but they could not ignore the mortal heroes who would arrive later. Ah, mortals! Pay the price for your blasphemy against this great temple. We will torture you well. I hope you can be as strong as the Titans. We can torture you for 1,000 years. The four matriarchs screamed and laughed maniacally as if they were in a carnival. Who knew that the frosty heroines would directly send a ray of light to the matriarchs? A long and narrow sword light that cut through the darkness. Chapter 2072. Mother of Flames. Nora's expression changed. A translucent wind blade grew larger and larger in the depths of her pupils. She used both her arms to cast Flame Strike. The ground in front of her was covered in flames, but the blade was not moving forward. It was light and agile. It was like a leaf being blown away by a strong wind. It swayed slightly, but in the next moment, it broke through the sea of flames and arrived in front of her. Nora's other four weapons were useless. She screamed and rolled to the side. The translucent blade crossed her body and left a line of blood on her left middle arm. A second later, she was horrified to find that her arm had almost been completely cut off. For the first time in 25,000 years, a great pain attacked her. What is this? Nora screamed and turned to look at the white-haired female elf that passed by her. It's called Conqueror of the Wind God's Throne. Stopping, the third sister of the Windrunner family, Sasha, revealed a mocking smile. As the name suggested, this blade was made of wind elements. It was made from the remains of the previous Wind Lord, Al-Akir. Part of it was used to fill in the Windseeker's sword for Gavin Rad, and the other part was given to Sasha to create this divine weapon that did not exist in history. Sasha was not supposed to be the main tank, but it seemed that the composition of the harem was a little uneven. On the other side, Hoof waved happy flames and charged towards Mother of the Night, Asura. Hoof Iroh had become a hoof. I'll chop 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 chop. In the past, Hoof could not do anything. She was either the healer or the vanguard with a small shield and hammer, always having to take care of her teammates. This time, with Iona's support, almost every hero in the Alliance had unlimited regenerative abilities. Hoof waved the divine weapon, Great Axe, and immediately used Crusader Strike. The holy golden light almost blinded Asura's eyes. Asura was about to go crazy. Since when did a little holy knight dare to talk back to her? Your holy light is not worth mentioning. Is that so? Osala had obviously underestimated Hoof, Valen's disciple. Or rather, Hoof's combat strength had always been underestimated in the Alliance. First of all, Duze did not want his harem to be the vanguard. Second, there were too many powerful people in the Holy Knights. The muscular men of the Four Silver Saints would definitely be the first to rush to the front. Basically, there was no chance for the Hoof to appear. Actually, the attack power of the Hoofs was not any weaker than the Four Silver Saints. Osala was at a disadvantage the moment they met. The three shadow-throwing daggers she threw out were actually melted by the flames of the Hoof's divine weapon battle axe in midair. Ursula gritted her teeth and swung her two great swords at the same time, barely blocking the Hoof's axe. However, just as Asura's uppermost pair of arms made a hand gesture to coordinate with the casting of Shadow Arrow, an extremely sharp arrow was shot. He bent his left leg and dodged to the side. Only then did he feel the wind elemental arrow brush past his cheek. The first arrow disappeared and the next one came immediately. It was still a wind arrow, and it still had that unstoppable and terrifying feeling. Osala's heart was filled with fear as she retreated. She was not afraid of ordinary physical and elemental attacks, but the wind arrow contained some kind of god-level power that shocked her. Only then did she see the golden-haired female elf who shot the arrow. The strong wind around her caused her beautiful blonde hair to flutter in the air. However, this did not obstruct her vision, allowing her to focus on shooting arrow after arrow. In particular, the hunting bow in her hand, which looked like a flapping eagle, emitted a powerful energy wave that made her heart throb like never before. Alarm bells rang. Sasdora Windrunner's legacy. Not long after the establishment of the elven kingdom of Kuel Salis, a skilled craftsman took a branch from the mother tree in the Long Song forest and carved it into Sasdora. Since then it had been the Windrunner family's proud heirloom. This bough was held by the eldest child of each generation of the Windrunner family. This generation's holder was of course Aurelia. However, the power of a divine artifact was not infinite. In the war with the trolls 2,800 years ago, the power of this divine artifact bough was almost exhausted. Since then, it had been placed in the secret sacred place of the Windrunner family, absorbing the natural energy of the Long Song forest and slowly recovering. Originally, the next time it could recover its power would be 1,000 years later. However, with the help of the Titans of the Pantheon Temple and the permission granted by the Azeroth Star Soul, this bow could see the light of day earlier. Aurelia's archery was not that simple. Every arrow shot seemed to travel through space and could be shot from any direction around Osala. However, this kind of highly concentrated divine arrow could open a big hole in her body with each arrow. The matriarch had never been a person with thick skin. This kind of fast but destructive fighting style was really asking for one's life. Osala felt like she was going crazy. How could there be such archery in this world? Every arrow was extremely strange and devoid of logic. But the wind arrow did not reason with Osara. It suddenly appeared, and Osara had to use all her strength to dodge sideways. She rolled on the ground without a care for her image to avoid the arrow aimed at her heart. Even so, her lower right arm was still shot and exploded. Ah! Osala let out a scream. Soraya, are you still not done? The two matriarchs had previously made a lot of threats, but they had suffered such a big loss in a single exchange. It was simply infuriating. However, the Witches of Destruction was not only the Burning Legion's command center. The room they were in had another important function. This was the prison that imprisoned the Titans of the Pantheon Temple. 25,000 years ago, Chief Sa had betrayed them and destroyed the Pantheon Temple. All the Titans, including Amon-Sur, were killed. It was not entirely correct to say that the Titans were dead because the Titans themselves were very special existences. The body and the soul could be two different things. Some of the souls ran away. They drove a huge spaceship called the Pantheon and hid in a hidden space crevice in a corner of the universe. The Titans' corpses and some of their remnant souls were imprisoned by Sargeras. After going through an extremely evil ritual, the Titans, who had shrunk in size after refinement, became pitiful prisoners. Other than helping kill Jaden command the entire Burning Legion, the four matriarchs would usually happily play S&M games with the Titans, using endless pain to torture these Titans, finally forcing them to fall and form a dark pantheon. Chapter 2073. The war between the Burning Legion and Azeroth had entered its final stage. In order to destroy planet Azeroth, kill Jaden alone was no longer enough. Sargeras, the army's highest combat power, had to enter the battlefield. Sargeras' resurrection was in its final stage. If Sargeras resurrected first, with his omnipotent abilities, he might be able to rush back and block Duque and the others at the Burning Throne. On the other hand, Duque and the others had already fought their way to the end of the Burning Throne, facing the four matriarchs and two fallen titans. For 25,000 years, due to the lack of souls and bodies, the Pantheon couldn't be activated normally at all. It had become a name with no substance. Once the Allied forces successfully raided planet Argus and rescued all the imprisoned Titan souls and bodies, the Pantheon's combat power would undergo a fundamental change. From providing indirect assistance, they would become the strongest combat power that could directly participate in the battle. Even if it was a shrunken version of their bodies, if Amon, Thul and the others could use half of their combat power, they would be able to take care of Sargeras, who had forcibly resurrected on Azeroth with his remnant soul and clone corpses. This was undoubtedly a mutual destruction. Let's see whose home would collapse first. Now no one could say for sure who would have the upper hand. In the tomb of Sargeras on planet Azeroth, Kill Jaden couldn't take it anymore. Even a brave woman was afraid of taking turns. Moreover, the ones taking turns weren't the 25-foot men in the game, but a group of super powerful people who were not much weaker than him. Almost all of them had the template of a boss. Among them they were either Titan Guardians or demigods. Even the mere mortals in the Eyes of the Eggs were mostly veterans who had experienced the 20-year war and killed a bunch of demigods and great demons. The Gemini twins, who had been completely taken advantage of by Duque and Eridar, realized in despair that once they made a move, they wouldn't reveal any of their moves. The group of mortal powerhouses had already made their moves. Then the Titan Guardians rushed forward to fight. Come on. A head-on confrontation. Those who didn't fight head-on were idiots without balls. Whether it was Odin, Tarim, or Hodir, they were all the same. Unfortunately, Kill Jaden could not bypass these big guys and kill Freya, who kept healing from behind. As the portal closed, the Void Dukes around him fell one by one, and Kill Jaden's condition worsened. His injuries continued to accumulate, and he had less and less time to cast spells. However, the silent and instantaneous shadow magic was not powerful enough to kill these Titan Guardians. As soon as they finished vomiting blood, Freya's healing spell healed them. He had healed himself right in front of him, allowing him to see his wounds healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. What a ruckus! How could they fight like this? Without a choice, Kill Jaden, who was unwilling to die just like that, finally used his last trump card. He secretly extracted mana from the mana pool that had been used to revive Sargeras to replenish himself. I'm doing this for the resurrection of our great leader. If I die, no one will protect Master Sargeras while he's casting the spell. As a fallen titan, he's so strong. It doesn't matter if he loses some magic power. Kill Jaden was a sinister guy. He was not a brute like Archimonde. Between self-preservation and loyalty, he quickly made his choice. It looked like Kill Jaden was on steroids, or maybe it was the final radiance of the setting sun. He suddenly became 2 levels stronger. All kinds of big moves were thrown out as if they were free, and for a moment the allied forces were in chaos. On the Burning Throne's side, while Duque's harem was beating up the matriarchs, Duque and the others at the front finally met the fallen titan Agrama. As soon as they entered the hall, an impassioned voice that was as hot as flames came crashing down on them. Just the fire element contained in the voice alone was enough to turn a normal low-level Void Duke into charcoal. Stop. Intruder. Other than the great Master Sargeras, no one is allowed to enter here. Looking up, they saw a 100-meter-tall flame giant. The outline of every muscle on its dark, stony body was separated by blazing lines of flames. The extremely heavy metal armor only covered less than half of its body. Its chest, thighs, and upper arms were not armored. The armor was more like a decoration. The huge winged helmet was shaped like a bull's horn. In the T-shaped front of the helmet, one could see a pair of flaming eyes that shone with golden light. When it stepped forward, it felt like the earth was shaking. What a fallen titan. How majestic. However, it was only majestic. Duque looked down on this guy. A fallen titan that could not contact the planets and universe to obtain external power was not a true titan. It was just a giant with the appearance and abilities of a titan. It could not display its endless power. The once noble titan of the pantheon has fallen to become a watchdog for enemies and traitors. And out of so many titans, only you submitted. This is embarrassing, Duque complained through the magic communication in the harem. Beside him, Queen Shi and Vashti both smiled slightly. Duque turned his head. Illidan, can you handle this guy? Who do you think I am? Illidan raised his chin arrogantly. He felt like an egg that was being looked down upon, and his fighting spirit was high. He pulled out the famous dual blades of Azeroth from behind him, entered his demon form in one breath, and charged straight at Illidan. In terms of body size, the demonized Illidan was at least 5 meters tall. To the night elves, he was already a giant. Unfortunately, in front of Agrama, he was a bug. Agrama instinctively disliked Illidan. Annoying and lowly demon. Go to hell. With a thunderous roar, Agrama raised his divine two-handed sword, Tesseract, and slashed down. When the burning greatsword fell, it gave people the feeling that a flaming mountain was collapsing. The pressure of the mountain and the flames were shocking. Illidan dodged. Agrama was not slow, but Illidan was faster. With a sidestep, he passed by the side of the sword. Hiss! As he passed by, Agrama's neck had a terrifying wound that was 2 meters wide. Green flames continued to burn on the wound, and it seemed out of place compared to the red flames that surrounded Agrama's body. Duque looked at it for a while. Let's go. Duque did not care if Illidan could defeat Agrama or not. As long as Illidan could not let Agrama leave his position and cause trouble while Duque and the others were dealing with Argus, it would be a great achievement. Chapter 2074. The corridor, which was already as wide as a football field, began to disassemble itself. The Eridar clan's unimaginable mechanism made a loud clatter sound, and then Duque and the others saw the sky. The corridor split into 2 halves in the middle. Apart from the small circular area where Duque and the others were standing, the surrounding 2 meter by 2 meter large square bricks were collapsing. Soon after, more colorful, almost glazed floor tiles rose from the depths of the ground, along with the large metallic flat ground. A trap. Queen Siko tilted her head, her smile a little cold. No. In front of a demigod whose body can be elementalized and whose life is connected to the entire planet, traps are nothing. Vashti smiled. Duque did not speak. He just stood there proudly and struck a pose. Because what was to come would eventually come. The other party was more anxious than they were. Argus the silent destroyer had arrived. With an aura that could split the heavens and earth apart. Almost every step he took caused the entire ground to tremble. Argus, who was guarding Shaman's lair, could have been a quiet titan handsome man, waiting for challengers at the final checkpoint to deliver themselves to him. Unfortunately, Duque's special strategy of stealing the planet's elementals had forced Argus to be restless. Duque did not want to split his forces and let his harem deal with the matriarchs. Of course, he hoped that all the bosses would stay in their own territory and be defeated one by one. The Burning Legion was no fool. If Duque had not split his forces just now, it was very likely that everyone would be stuck at the destruction which Guild's home ground for the final battle. Duque led his men in a frenzy and managed to separate the matriarchs, Agrima and Argus. However, the Argus in front of him was too huge. He was at least 1,000 meters tall. Duque was displeased. Yo, I don't like to look up to other beings. All the big guys who dared to stand in front of me as enemies ended up lying on the ground. You will not be an exception, Duque said calmly. You. Argus the silent destroyer had wanted to curse angrily, but his expression suddenly changed. The surrounding elements changed. Countless elemental vortexes of various sizes suddenly appeared around his gigantic body. What happened next was enough to make a person with trypophobia feel numb and scream. Because every vortex seemed to have become Brother Octopus' suction cup, and scrupulously absorbing elements from Argus' body. Countless beautiful arcs of light streaked across the empty space that was about to become a battlefield. Elemental radiance intertwined with each other and flew outwards. The flickering radiance outlined impressionistic oil paintings on the ground. Argus instinctively rejected the elemental extraction. Rays of light crisscrossed in midair, and the Titan runes combined to form a small magical formation, producing lines of law. These lines of law were like countless spear soldiers facing off against each other, and as they clashed, they erupted with ear-piercing explosions and spatial turbulence. A newly born earth elemental creature accidentally bumped into these intersecting cracks, and like a firework exploding, it was smashed into pieces in the blink of an eye. Bastard, Argus cursed. It was bad enough that Duque had pulled the 4 elemental lords over to cut off his connection with this planet. Duque actually wanted to forcibly extract elements from his body in front of him? The existence of all matter in Azeroth was based on the 4 elements. For the Titans, the 4 elements were an important part of their gigantic bodies. Wasn't extracting elements from a Titan the same as cuckolding him in front of his face? It was only natural that Argus the Terminator felt angry. He immediately realized that if he continued to maintain such a huge body, based on the defense of his skin per unit area, he would not be able to stop Duke from robbing him of his elements. The only solution was to become smaller. As he cursed, he activated the Titan's unique body compression spell. With his body mass unchanged, Argus shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just 10 seconds, he went from a 1,000-meter-tall, towering and majestic body to a 20-meter-tall little giant. A ridiculous golden metal helmet in the shape of a mountain, a blue, noble, muscular body, and a pile of black wrist guards, belt and leg guards. In a sense, Argus the Terminator looked like a blue-skinned version of the Spartan warrior. While his body's density increased exponentially, his magic defense also reached an astonishing level. But Duque said, "Yes, that's good." Damn, this tone is clearly lecturing his own grandson. Duque's laughter made Queen Sylvanas and Vashj, who were next to him, burst out laughing. Argus became smaller, but Duque unceremoniously became bigger. An elemental giant mixed with the dual elements of fire and arcane rose under Duque's feet. In less than 3 seconds, the elemental giant used its head to lift Duque to a place where Argus could see. "Tiny native god, are you underestimating the power of the Titans?" Argus shouted, raised the huge scythe in his hand that was at least 20 meters long, and slashed down. "No, I'm just underestimating a puppet that Sargeras uses as a power bank." Duque said something that outsiders couldn't understand. Power bank? What the hell? Duque didn't have to answer him. Argus the Terminator was not a complete Titan from the day he was born anyway. Ever since the Twisted Nether was blown up, Sargeras had been anxious to find a backup resurrection point to resurrect the demons who had died in battle in the outside world. Another key point that restricted Argus from drawing power from the planet was that the Titan power that should have belonged to Argus had been King taken to the demons as resurrection tokens. Of course, Duque made the most incisive use of this point. The giant scythe in Argus' hand made an incomparably standard slashing motion. The elemental giant in front of him was like a collapsing wall, and a large part of its chest was directly torn apart and turned into nothingness. But the elemental giant with a broken body didn't care, and the claws of its left hand were like 3 sharp daggers that gouged into Argus' arm. Damn it! Argus cursed. He had seen shamelessness, but he had never seen such shamelessness. These elements were extracted from him a moment ago, and with a program programmed by Duque, he immediately became his opponent. The elements that belonged to Duque, after being processed by Titan magic, were given special destructive power. Even the Titans couldn't withstand this power with their extraordinarily tough skin. Argus raised his left hand and unleashed the Wrath of Pain. The attack, which contained a large amount of evil energy and the will of pain, made Duque's skin feel like it was being cut by a knife as soon as it was released. This was the venting of the resentment of being tortured by Sargeras during the Terminator's growth. Chapter 2075. Violent anger was infused into the move, and even though Duque and the others had blocked Argus's dark energy impact, the mental impact still slightly injured their souls. Queen Sylvanas was a little annoyed. Circles of lightning formed on her long golden eyebrows, and the hot breath she exhaled formed a breeze that blended into the chaotic elemental turbulence around her in a blink of an eye. In less than 3 seconds, the surrounding wind suddenly turned into a gale and surged violently. Then the light of thunder lit up the sky, so bright that people could not open their eyes. The continuous bursts of thunder and lightning almost made people think that it was an earthquake-level roar, and even the earth was shaking. Large chunks of Argus skin were charred black, but it didn't take long for his skin to turn azure blue again. It was probably the self-healing ability of his body. The stone bricks around the silent destroyer were all turned to dust, except for under his feet. The small oval area was more like a satire on Queen Sylvanas. Tch. Queen Sylvanas gritted her teeth. On the other side, Vashj had already begun to shoot. Duque grabbed Queen Sylvanas' hand. I told you don't be impulsive. That's an existence with vitality equal to at least 1/3 of Argus's planet. Or do you think you can blow up an Azeroth planet with one blow? After so many years, although Queen Sylvanas was tough, she was never really reckless. Got it? I just want to experience the power of the Titans. On the other side, the angry Argus did not hold back. He raised the scythe of Argus high and swept it with great force. At the top of the dark blue long handle with a yellow ring was an illusory cyan scythe blade. At first glance, it looked like the entire universe was branded on the sharp surface of the blade. A simple and violent slash, with the merciless strength and the terrifying Titan's power, felt like a flash, and the scythe cut Duque's elemental giant in half. The elemental giant let out a shrill cry and suddenly stood up, its claws piercing towards Argus' neck. But Argus did not even look, and with a cold face, punched the chest of the elemental giant with his left hand, which had lost its lower body. Bang! The huge elemental giant was sent flying. That wasn't all. Argus took a big stride forward, followed closely behind the elemental giant's body, and punched its already shattered chest. Amidst a series of strange explosions, the arcane fire giant, which was a combination of both arcane and fire elements, completely exploded. The high temperature that was released from the explosion turned the area within a radius of several hundred meters into a charred hell. Even Vashj and Queen Sylvanas, who were accustomed to watching the duels between the strong, could not help but be stunned at this scene. They turned their heads and stared at Duque. Originally, Argus had more fire elements than Azeroth. An elemental giant formed from at least 20% of the planet's fire elements was definitely not weak. Before the time of Return of Legions, its strength surpassed the main body of Ragnaros, the former king of Balrog in the Land of Fire. This was not an exaggeration. It was just that this arcane fire giant was a little miserable because the one who beat it happened to be the big boss Argus, the source of its power. Although Duque gave them his own laws and new definitions when he extracted these fire elements, things in the bones were not so easy to change. Looking at the dense, thick and bright lines of law on the Nirvanic's left fist, what else could Duque do? He shrugged helplessly. We just need to hold Argus back, Duque emphasized again. Argus had to die. If he didn't die, the army would be invincible and President Shaman would be unscrupulous. How to kill Argus was quite particular. Duque was an elemental god, and his control of the elements was at the peak even in the divine territory. Unfortunately, he had just been promoted, and he had no choice but to come to Argus to fight an away game. Anyone would be overjoyed to be able to fight to this point. If Duque was given enough time, he could definitely use 1,000 ways to slowly torture the poor worm Argus to death. But if he wanted to be fast, he couldn't do it alone. After all, the elements he extracted were all the elements of Argus itself, not something he brought from Azeroth. The elements were not easy to use, and when they hit the Nirvanic, the damage was greatly reduced. He was helpless. In fact, Vashj and Queen Sylvanas were similar. One used water and the other used wind. If they couldn't make the elements they transferred imprint their deepest imprint, then the fight would always be half the result with twice the effort. In any case, this true divine battle was still earth-shattering. The aftermath of the battle quickly destroyed the terrain, and the area became full of potholes. The ground was full of potholes and mountains would collapse at every turn, or a side hall would be blasted. Hand-to-hand combat wasn't the strength of Duque and the others, but fortunately they had their respective summoned elemental giants. These poor giants were thrown out like softballs by Argus the Nirvanic time and time again, smashed and cut in half. Argus, however, couldn't do anything to three puny demigods and true gods. Against ordinary enemies he could still control the elements in the entire space, fill it with shadow elements, and launch various ultimate moves to finish off the opponent. But Duque and the others didn't eat this at all. Because this was basically Argus insulting himself. The only difference was whose mark belonged to which group of elemental energy. At this moment in the assault battle, the situation changed subtly again. Duque's side couldn't advance in a short period of time, but if the harem group could make progress, then the battle would have a decisive change. Because once the four matriarchs were defeated, they could save most of the titans in the pantheon. Even if not all the titans could return to their peak state, they could still save the entire situation. Your efforts are destined to fail. The Burning Legion will destroy everything, the flame matriarch Nora screamed, waving her 6 arms to slash at the silver-haired little person in front of her. Sasha's expression was calm as if she didn't hear anything around her. Her entire heart was focused on her sword. She raised her sword to the same level as her chest, and reached out with 2 hands to press on the edge of the sword. The next moment she turned into a stream of wind again. Nora's 6 broken and heavily injured arms missed, but she still turned around sharply, and was shocked to see a long and narrow sword gleam. Impossible? Nora was shocked to realize that the sword gleam had already penetrated her defense. The next moment she felt that the left side of her neck didn't belong to her. She saw shock in the eyes of the shadow matriarch Tima, who was opposite her. She knew why. Most of her neck was broken. Smelly blue blood spurted out uncontrollably. Chapter 2076. Nora gritted her teeth and used her top left hand to press down on her neck, attempting to make a final struggle. But at this moment an arrow shot over without a sound. There was only one existence present who could shoot such a sinister arrow. It was the noble elf who was so beautiful that even Nora was jealous of her. Her elegant demeanor was something that vicious matriarchs like them could not achieve even after 10,000 years of training. At this moment, as she was not suppressed by any of the matriarchs, she went all out. How terrifying could a sniper who was not harassed be? Now she had to experience it with her own life. That arrow scared Nora out of her wits. She subconsciously used her middle left hand to block it. Unfortunately, a small part of her palm was blown off in the next instant. Before she could even scream in pain, the arrow in midair seemed to disappear. When it reappeared, it was already pressed against her temple. No! Nora's cry was filled with despair. This was the fastest arrow in the mortal world. The strongest arrow below the divine realm. With the wind elemental power activated by second sister Sylvanas, Aurelia's abilities were not at the divine realm, but she was stronger than a demigod. This arrow surpassed the imagination of all the matriarchs. The matriarchs had strong vitality. In the end, Sylvanas's core position was to be a spellcaster, not a race that charged and broke through enemy lines. Injuries would hurt and severe injuries would kill. There was no such thing as a holy healing spell that could restore one's HP to full or resurrect on the spot with faith in Brother Spring. Nora, the Mother of Flames, was dead. This caused a fatal flaw in the cycle of the matriarchs. The matriarchs did not want to directly enter the battlefield. Even in battle, they would use all sorts of methods to teleport themselves to the Titan cages next door. By torturing the Titans' bodies and remnant souls, they would force the Titans to use all sorts of ultimate moves to harm the invaders. Nora's death directly increased the pressure on Fatima, who was still in the battlefield. Osala, the Mother of the Night, had no choice but to appear to save the situation. Soraya, the Mother of the Universe, was the only one left inside, still torturing the Titans. At this moment, Tyrant and Jaina arrived. This was the straw that broke the camel's back. Tyrant snorted coldly and led the charge into battle. As the former High Priestess of Elun and the leader of the Elven Sentinels, she was a master of both magic and martial arts. Even after Elun agreed to let her serve Duque, Elun did not deprive Tyrant of her power due to their good relationship. Elun even allowed Tyrant to continue using her Starfall. It was just that when Tyrant and Chandris needed to use their ultimate skills at the same time, Chandri's would go first. Tyrant's first move was Starfall. The huge meteor had long since begun its descent. When the meteor broke through the atmosphere and was about to touch the exterior of the burning throne, a huge teleportation portal silently opened. The place it connected to was the battlefield where the matriarchs were at. Seeing the teleportation gate that suddenly opened and the terrifying meteorite that suddenly appeared, Tima was a little dumbfounded. If he reacted any slower, he wouldn't be able to dodge it. Planet Argus was larger than Azeroth, and its gravitational acceleration was higher. Under its effects, the speed of the meteorite's descent was even faster, and the damage it caused was naturally even more terrifying. Sylvanas were never an agile race. As an adult Sylvana, Fatima was as tall as a 3-story building. She had 6 arms but only 2 legs. Tima couldn't escape and could only take it head-on. Bang! At the moment of impact, sand and pebbles flew everywhere. It was a spectacular sight. Lifting the rock with 6 arms, failed. Then let's smash the rock with our chest. Being hit by a meteorite that was at least the size of a medium-sized tank and falling at a 60-degree angle from the ground, it was already a testament to Tima's amazing physique that she didn't turn into meat paste on the spot. In the end, she couldn't withstand the terrifying impact. With all 6 of her arms broken, Tima was sent flying with her back wide open. Of course, Duke's harem wouldn't let go of such an opportunity. Just as Tima was sent flying, she suddenly realized that she was no longer falling on flat ground, but a mountain of blades. In that instant, it was a mountain of frost blades made of god-level elemental density. Arg! The toughness of a demon's body, other than the talent of eating, was largely dependent on the dark energy in their bodies. Injecting a high density of dark energy into their body surface not only increased their strength, but also increased their defense and the regeneration of their cells. When she ate that meteorite just now, Tima's dark energy was almost depleted. Before she could recover, she was stabbed by Jaina's iceberg. That was bad enough. Unexpectedly, her original opponent, her former compatriot who wielded a blazing axe, the Draenei paladin Iriel, seized the opportunity and leaped high into the air, slashing at her chest. Flame Joy accurately slashed at Tima's already charred chest, easily breaking at least 10 of her ribs. Holy golden flames shot out from her heart, and in the blink of an eye, Tima screamed as she walked towards death. There were only 3 bosses in the Havoc Witch Guild. The basic battle mode was 2 matriarchs coming out to cause trouble, 1 playing hardcore games with the Titans, and the 3 leaders taking turns to fight the players. In reality and in the game there were a total of 4 matriarchs. Only 2 of them were on the field, and the remaining 1 went to torment the Titans, while the other was in charge of suppressing the Titans who were constantly resisting. After all, Duke had formed an alliance with the Pantheon beforehand, and when Duke's harem arrived, Amonthul and the rest immediately contacted their broken bodies and souls to start a riot. This greatly restricted the power of the matriarchs. With Nora and Tima dead, Asura and Suraya were left panicking. Asura, who had just teleported out, naturally encountered the fiercest siege, and it was the kind that could not be countered. Hoof and Sasha were blocking in front, Tyrant, Jaina, Elucia, and Aurelia were attacking wildly in the middle, and Kalia was healing at the back. Suraya, who was inside, was also in trouble. Suddenly, a huge palm grabbed Suraya's left leg. The moment the Mother of the Universe saw, raging roar Gorgan's eyes turn from pain to clarity, she immediately realized that all 3 of her left arms were being grabbed by Kaz, Garoth. Dreamweaver, Noganon and Supreme Father Amonthul were also there. The 4 Titans' main souls had obviously contacted their broken bodies and souls, and 1, 2, 3, all attacked the evil matriarchs that had tortured their broken bodies and souls for a full 25,000 years. When Tyrant and the rest quickly defeated Asura and rushed to the next room, they found that Suraya was already dead. 6 arms, 2 legs, and a head had all been forcefully torn off using different methods. Disregarding Savala's original appearance and the blood on the ground, she really did look like a huge female stick. Chapter 2077. In any case, that scene was rather tasteless. Inside, Thul slowly removed the last shackles on his body. The Father of the Gods did not care about the suppression of the 4 matriarchs. Over the past 25,000 years, the ones who had truly suppressed them and regained their bodies and souls were Sargeras, Kil'jaeden, Archimonde, and Argus the Nirvanic. As long as these evil figures were around, even if they were temporarily freed, they would only gain a short period of freedom before being suppressed again. Thul and the others would definitely not do such a thankless thing. Don't think that the Titans were so noble and did not have a temper. After being tortured for so many years, even Buddha would have a temper. The fact that they did not kill the 4 matriarchs and revive them before killing them again was already a testament to their moral integrity. With a light wave of his hand, Suraya and the corpses of the 3 matriarchs disappeared without a sound. They turned into dust and disappeared in the hot, turbid wind of the burning throne. Amonthul was very careful. He had only injected a little of his soul to activate the remnant body and soul. With another wave of his hand, the battered body had already donned a set of blue robes. From the looks of it, he was once again the noble and supreme father of the gods. Thank you, mortal heroes. Now the final moment has arrived. Sargeras is about to revive on planet Azeroth. We must hurry back to the Pantheon. Only then will we have enough power to stop Sargeras. Amonthul nodded at the women in Duke's harem, a smile appearing on his face for the first time in a long time. Tyron took a step forward. Defeating Argus the Nirvanic is also a very important part. Duke said that with his power alone, it will take a long time to defeat the Nirvanic. The Titans looked at each other and Amonthul spoke again. Don't worry. We will take action. Thank you very much. Tyron led the women and bowed to the Titans. The Pantheon will remember your kindness for eternity. This was Amonthul's promise. An opportunity to make the Pantheon Temple owe them a big favor was something that only happened once in a billion years. Once they defeated the Burning Legion, as long as the Pantheon didn't perish again, the people of Azeroth would be able to do whatever they wanted in this universe. With a wave of his hand, Amon-Sur and the rest of the Titans left with the corpses. The physical departure was not a true departure. Giant humanoid figures with the silhouettes of Titans were left behind. They looked a little like the observer Duke had been dealing with Orgulon. There were dozens of miniature stars twinkling inside the humanoid figure. It was the compressed power of the star. Unlike Orgaren, the faces of these figures were translucent. It was easy to tell if they were Amonthul or no Ganon. Let's go. Wake that good-for-nothing up, Cosgrove spat. Yes. Amon-Sur nodded. Another teleportation door opened beside them. This time Aona, the life bestower, sent in an astral soul clone. The good-for-nothing that the Titans were talking about was naturally Agrama, the Avenger who had been tortured into confessing and surrendered to Sargeras. Agrama was a male Titan. During the time of the Pantheon, he had bronze skin wrapped under a golden robe. He used to be Sargeras' adjutant, filling the empty position after Sargeras left and becoming a member of the Pantheon. His duty was to fight against the Burning Legion and the corruption of the demons. Although he had never shown his emotions, he harbored a strong hatred and anger towards Sargeras' betrayal. Unfortunately, emotions were very complicated. The opposite of hatred could be love. The other Titans had resisted for 25,000 years and never truly surrendered. He was the only one who surrendered. This was really awkward. Other than the Pantheon dealing with Sargeras, Agrama also had to convince him to abandon the dark side and join the light side. Oh. With his fists, of course. On the other side, Illidan was in a sorry state. In the original history, as the true son of light and darkness, he carried the hopes of the entire village. Oh no, he carried the hopes of the entire Night Elves if they failed to resist the Burning Legion. For 10,000 years he lived like a villain, but he never lost his moral integrity. He was completely different from a certain Du who had a harem all over the world under the banner of a hero. In the original story, Illidan was very strong. Although he wasn't a proud dragon, his power was at least at the peak of demigods. Unfortunately, he didn't know if Du Mok had taken away his dream lover, but at the same time, his luck was also taken away. Illidan's pride was still off the charts, but his power couldn't keep up, and the opponents he chose were a little bad. After Avenger, Agrama fell, his power was reduced to that of a dog. The problem was that he used to be a professional demon slayer. His body was covered in flames, and ordinary people would be burned to death if they came within a kilometer of him. Illidan had a heart like the holy light, and he was a good person deep down, but his body and power were of the demon bloodline. When they fought, he was quite restrained. He and Agrama were in a state where they were almost defenseless against each other. Illidan's speed was not something that Agrama could catch up with. Almost every time Illidan flew, he could leave a deep wound on Agrama's huge body. Similarly, Illidan could only endure the damage from Agrama's aura of fire. He also had to dodge Agrama's 3 attacks. Oh my god. F***CKU. What the F***CK? Oh no. It should be Tesseract Sword Technique, the 5-hit combo. Although he did not know if this was what the Silent Avenger was saying in his heart, the 5-hit combo only had 3 moves. They were Enemy Destroyer, which had a cone-shaped area of effect, Flame Rend, which originally needed a group of people to share the damage, and Scorching Storm, which bombarded the entire area. Every move of the huge two-handed greatsword was earth-shattering. The originally flat ground of the hall was all built with high-hardness Argus bricks that were soaked with dark energy. Every stone here only needed to be slightly infused with intelligence to become a powerful Hellfire elite. Even such a solid ground was easily flipped into the air like sand on a beach. One Enemy Destroyer, and the cone-shaped area of effect that was larger than a basketball court instantly lowered the altitude by 10 meters. One Flame Rend, and the pillars that were thousands of meters away were instantly pulverized. Not to mention Scorching Storm, that ultimate move that turned the entire hall into a purgatory. Even the demons who were said to be the most adaptable to heat and flames could not withstand it. At that moment, a few huge shadows suddenly appeared at the entrance of the hall where the two were fighting. Amunthul's avatar stood at the entrance, his eyes filled with holy light and a peerless aura. "Wake up, Grandma. It's time to punish the traitor." Chapter 2078. Kill Jaden. Your little tricks are useless. You won't be able to buy us much time. Odin's loud voice shook the entire tomb. Norganon's hands glowed with a dazzling blue light. When the mysterious Titan rune circle unfolded beneath Norganon's feet, it quickly transformed into a special divine power that surged towards Agrama. Agrama's main soul's doppelganger immediately plunged into the corrupted, tortured, and fallen Agrama's body. "Wake up. Let us face the real enemy together." After a burst of flames that resembled a volcanic eruption, Illidan suddenly realized that there was a huge teleportation door next to Agrama. "Tisharak, Flaming Flare. You injected your dark energy and I used holy light to expel it out." Agrama's body was like the sun, shooting out terrifying flames that could burn everything. That's right, because the Avengers' obsession was too strong, the matriarchs made a little cognitive distortion to make this soul think that he was guarding the Pantheon. The demons could not return to the twisting nether, but that did not mean that the demons that had entered the planet's atmosphere could not move. They opened a large number of medium and small portals, and began to gather towards the tomb of Sargeras. When Kill Jaden injected Shadow Image into the three champions of the Alliance, the three minions that spawned unleashed Flame of Fear as soon as they appeared, attempting to interfere with the mortal champions with rings of flames. Empress Dowager, Gavin Rad, and a bunch of divine artifacts slashed at them. The minions were wiped out after a few hits. Agrama suddenly became extremely pained. The pain and anger that came from the depths of his heart almost destroyed his sanity. Arg. What have I done? I'm serving my enemy. Holy light. Holy light. It's King Holy Light. Sargeras. Everyone saw that he was opening a large portal, and on the other side of the portal was the outer space of Azeroth. Agrama's eyes, no, to be precise, the dark energy chips in front of his eyes shattered. There was nothing they could do without Duque's presence. Why would a cunning and ambitious guy like Kill Jaden give up at this juncture? There was only one answer. Even though he had stopped the Demon Legion's delivery, Kill Jaden still had many soldiers lying in ambush around the tomb and underground. Moreover, after realizing that something had happened to the Twisted Nether, the demons from all over planet Azeroth received orders to gather at Sargeras' tomb. However, all of his resentment vanished with a signal from the Eridar Wizard Legion in the deepest part of the tomb. The incarnation of Norganon the Dreamweaver, who had platinum skin and long silver hair, stood out. My poor brother. The devil's illusion actually distorted my vision. This divine sword, which had a huge oblique section on its blade, was once complete. When Sargeras was still a member of the Pantheon, his spiritual sword was called Goslak, Dark Redeemer, the strongest weapon in the universe. With that, Agrama strode towards the portal. However, a flaming silhouette that looked exactly like him remained where it was. Almost all the experts of the Alliance army were attacking the spatial wall with all their might, but everyone realized that they were a step too late. Gotcha. Odin slashed hard at the spatial wall. Due to the fact that their strength was on par, there was no rebound, but golden cracks could clearly be seen on the spatial wall. It was only a matter of time before the spatial wall was destroyed. This feeling was too terrifying. There was a moment of dead silence on the battlefield, and there was no distinction between friend and foe. If Duque was still here, he might have been able to destroy their teleportation. However, Old Man Odin on the other side was also very powerful. Kill Jaden's Evil Claw, which contained a large amount of dark energy, was very powerful. Even if an ordinary expert was wearing 10 tons of steel armor, they would still be as weak as a piece of paper under the erosion of the dark energy. As long as we can drag it out, we can. Don't you know? You're all finished. Ah. Damn guardians. Puny mortals. You're all finished. Kill, Jaden laughed maniacally as he moved quickly. When Agrama's body completely disappeared from the portal, planet Azeroth was in its greatest crisis. Kill Jaden wanted to charge over, but who knew that the bear monster demigod Ushik and User were carrying the tortoise god Tortola as a meat shield. Odin and Hodier, the two guardians, were also on both sides. Kill Jaden was so frustrated that he could die. He suddenly spread his wings and spat out large clouds of dark energy and poisonous fog. Not only that, he waved his arms, and several magic walls with obvious spatial attributes suddenly appeared in front of the allied forces. Come, Agrama. We need your strength to deal with Sargeras, Amun, Thul's soul incarnation said. That was the emissary, sent by Agrama's main soul. At the same time, a shadow that looked exactly like Agrama walked down from the void. Destroy. Kill. Destroy. Agrama's fierce and lifelike flame eyes suddenly turned murky, and his gaze fell on his huge two-handed sword. Originally, a brutal battle was going on in every corner of the thousands of square kilometers around the tomb of Sargeras. Understood. But Agrama turned back and looked into the depths of the burning throne. I still have to repay the favor. To make matters worse, a strong sense of unease rose in everyone's hearts. The worst thing was that one of Kill Jaden's ultimate skills, Fracture Singularity, was supposed to be the key to victory. Such a powerful spatial vortex would kill anyone who touched it. Mortals would die instantly if they were hit by it, and even the Guardians wouldn't dare to take it head-on. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying feeling came from the sky above the battlefield. But in the battle between him and Sargeras, Sargeras destroyed Goslak. Since then, Agrama the Avenger had the first part of Goslak, while Sargeras had the other part of Gorobur, Seeker of Darkness. Now that B***** Tarim didn't do anything. He just retreated to the second line and stared at the sky. How many Fracture Singularity did he release? That many lightning interference vortexes in the sky. Oh no. He's going to run. Varian yelled. This was the biggest humiliation that Agrama had suffered in the past 25,000 years. Illidan, who was in front of him, couldn't take it at all. He instinctively raised his hands and blocked in front of him. At this time, a wave of divine power appeared in front of him. It was a round shield of divine power. Countless small Titan runes formed into lines, and the lines weaved into a surface, forming a 2-meter diameter disc. It easily deflected the flames that were coming out. In a situation where both parties had similar levels of mysticism, the various skills were just a battle of energy consumption. Chapter 2079. Outside Azeroth's atmosphere, in the Burning Legion's battleship matrix arranged like a ring of stars, the surface of hundreds of thousands of battleships suddenly burst out with a dazzling green evil light. Clusters of light converged and were converged into a super evil magic circle that spanned hundreds of thousands of kilometers and ran wildly. The magic circle looked like a huge bright green halo. The strong light emitted by the halo would be transmitted to many light years away. And this halo was hanging upside down over the entire planet Azeroth. It stretched across the sky, like a shrinking space of death, giving people a sense of suffocating despair. At that moment, the entire planet trembled. In the depths of the planet, there seemed to be a sound echoing. It was the wail of the soul of Azeroth, like a disheveled little girl who was forced into a corner by a thug with nowhere to escape. Her screams stimulated the thug's bestial desires. An immeasurable amount of evil energy was slowly pouring from outer space into the orbit of planet Azeroth. At the same time, there were clusters of green evil energy rising from all over Azeroth and converging into the sky. The next moment, a huge green beam of light shot out from the deepest part of Sargeras' tomb. The beam of light was so huge that even if the entire Naxxramas constellation was placed on top of it, it would not be able to block it. As the beam of light rose, millions of tons of sand flew into the sky. It was not the kind of sputtering caused by an explosion, but the slow rise of anti-gravity. The Well of Eternity, once the energy overflow outlet of the planet, opened again after being closed for 10,000 years. Wrapped in indescribable energy, mortals with good eyesight in the distance could see a bronze-skinned giant rising into the sky with the beam of light. That was Sargeras' avatar. He sent this avatar to be defeated by the guardian Aegwynn, but Aegwynn couldn't destroy the avatar's body, so she could only seal and bury it here. At this moment, this avatar became the biggest foreshadowing of this big conspiracy that spanned hundreds of years. Only the most powerful of the coalition forces could see that there was also a corpse embedded in the forehead of this huge avatar. It was the corpse of Illidan Stormrage. Another Illidan Stormrage from a parallel timeline had died in the Darkness Temple a long time ago. Now, he had become the catalyst for Sargeras' revival in the main timeline. Ah! The great Sargeras has been completely resurrected. While the allied forces were stunned, Kil'jaeden was no longer in a hurry to escape. He raised his claws. A large three-dimensional projection of planet Azeroth appeared in front of the allied forces. In the image, everyone could see the black clouds churning above the planet. In just a few seconds, the clouds turned from black to emerald green, the color of dark powers, very much in the style of the Burning Legion. If anyone had seen Argus before, they would have found that the atmosphere of planet Azeroth had become very similar to that of Argus. The clouds that spanned hundreds of thousands of kilometers began to converge, shrinking to a length and width of tens of thousands of kilometers. Even so, this area and volume was extremely terrifying. What made all the mortals tremble with fear was that this green cloud actually formed a human figure. A few seconds later, from the perspective of outer space, one could see that his figure was that of a demon. A demon so huge that it was beyond the imagination of all mortal creatures in the world. His size was not inferior to any of the stars hanging high in the sky. Even if he was crouching on a large planet like Azeroth, he could still cover more than one-third of the sky. Yes, he was the Burning Legion's demon king, the fallen titan, Sargeras. As soon as he appeared, he confirmed the rumor that titans were born on a planet that had never been proven by the creatures of Azeroth. His huge claws could tear the stars apart. Just the shadow of his crimson claws sweeping across the earth could make the sky above the battlefield dark. The battlefield was first covered by the claws and darkened for a moment. Then the whole world suddenly lit up again. What's going on? Is Sargeras resurrected or not? God! What the hell was that just now? The entire Azeroth coalition army, be it the soldiers and titan creations on the battlefield, the city guards hiding in the seemingly sturdy fortress at the rear, and even the trembling people hiding in the underground air raid shelters, were all filled with fear at this moment. Just as the mortals on the battlefield of the Broken Islands were doubting their guesses, they heard a cold snort coming from the sky. The sky darkened again, and every cloud was dyed with a blazing green color. First, a strange crimson color covered the sky. Then a sparkling green flaming eye opened in the clouds. Sargeras. His face alone was already bigger than the entire Broken Islands. If it weren't for the fact that they were observing from the depths of outer space, the mortals wouldn't even have the chance to see his ominous crimson body and the pair of demonic wings that truly covered the sky. Oh my God! Is this the fallen titan? The titans are so huge? The giants we saw in the past weren't even comparable to ants. I thought that the real titans were just a legend. Such a monster, can we really defeat him? Be it the people or the soldiers, in the face of such a huge and unimaginable existence, it was normal for them to doubt their lives and feel despair. To be able to fight against a 5-story tall hellfire, a 10-story tall demon, and a 20-story tall fell mech, this was already a great achievement that the intelligent beings of Azeroth could barely muster up the courage to do after more than a decade of guidance from the Alliance. One had to know that 36 years ago, the Alliance was just a weak organization that couldn't even deal with a mere million orcs and was almost wiped out. After experiencing 3 battles at the Dark Portal, natural disasters, and ancient gods, the psychological endurance of the Alliance people became a little stronger. However, against such a planetary-level monster, the largest main cannon of the Alliance's fortress was destined to be ineffective. As if to confirm the mortals' fears, Sargeras, who was above the atmosphere, extended his demonic claws towards the Azeroth sky fortress that had been the protection of the mortals since the Legion's return, the city of Condors. Although the sky fortress had started to evacuate as soon as Sargeras appeared, according to Duque's instructions, there were still a few existences that weren't willing to just give in. The fortress quickly opened up a hole, and a bunch of light cannons that had once struck fear into the hearts of countless demons shot out. Vulcan's Wrath. This main cannon of the fortress could easily turn the Legion's largest starship into dust in outer space. However, Sargeras ignored the main cannon's attack. With a light squeeze of his huge claws that could tear the sky and earth apart, the city of Condors was like a crushed egg, turning into nothingness. Countless fragments of the fortress pierced through the sky, broke through the atmosphere and fell to the ground. This scene seemed to be announcing the arrival of the apocalypse. Chapter 2080. Countless stones contaminated by green evil energy were passing through the void battlefield guarded by the dragons. Tens of thousands or even hundreds of millions of lights were falling towards Azeroth. The allied heroes were in the tomb of Sargeras, quietly watching this scene through Kill Jaden's 3D projection. They could totally imagine the spectacular, poignant and terrifying scene looking up at the sky on the land of Azeroth. Every single dot of light was no longer a simple fragment of the stronghold. After being infused with Sargeras' supreme evil energy, they would become hellfire giants of all sizes after falling to the ground, and become part of the Burning Legion. In the industrial elven forest, in Lordaeron that was reborn after destruction, in the snow-capped frozen throne of Northrend, in the unchanged Darnassus, in the splendid valley that began to grow green grass after the catastrophe, in the broken beach that burned with the flames of war, in every area of planet Azeroth. When people looked up, they saw Sargeras' huge figure covering half of the sky. In the scene of the descent of the blinding light of destruction, after countless hellfire entered the atmosphere, their own flames fused with the flames produced by the high-speed friction, forming a long tail of flames that seemed slow but was actually falling rapidly from the sky that had been covered by evil and the stars could not be seen. It was like a rain of flames. It was the light of the end, the desperate situation before the world was destroyed. Just as the Burning Legion had destroyed thousands of planets. The end was coming. There was no power in the mortal world that could resist Sargeras. Not to mention the people and soldiers below, even the Alliance command in Naxxramas was filled with pessimism and despair. Oh my God. The Pantheon is already an empty shell. Our heroes are trapped in the tomb of Sargeras and can't move an inch. Even the greatest hero Duque and his commandos have no news. How can we mortals get out of such a desperate situation? Many female heralds were already sobbing, and even the strongest officer couldn't help but tremble. On the battlefield, old Mograine gripped the hilt of his sword so tightly that his nails pierced his palm and oozed blood. Marshal Bridget Abendis's face was ashen. She gripped the corner of her clothes with one hand and touched the armor on her abdomen with the other. She did not say a word. There was a tiny life growing there. The Prince of Stormwind, Anduin Wrynn, looked up at the sky with tears streaming down his face. Father. Uncle Duque, didn't you say that you would end this long war between good and evil in your hands? If you are really superheroes who can perform miracles every single time, then let me witness the birth of another miracle. Let me believe in you till the end. Not many people were able to see that at this moment, there was another strange scene in the void battlefield. It was a huge dragon, an innumerable dragon. If tens of thousands of giant dragons were to fly over any of the Alliance's capitals, the effect they would cause would also be enough to blot out the sky. They spread their wings and silently flew across the void battlefield. They rampaged around and countless battleships of the army were smashed into pieces. It was as if they had escaped from the orbit of the planet and were being sucked down by the gravity of the planet Azeroth. They were the Pentashade dragons. The legendary creatures that had been guarding the sky of Azeroth for 25,000 years. A beautiful green dragon looked into the distance in the void. That was the direction of Argus. Isra muttered to herself, Duque, hurry up and finish it. Otherwise I'll be leaving first. Beside her, a slightly smaller black dragon flew past. Isra heard the voice of Onyxia's soul nagging, Bastard master. Shameless master. If you want to lie to me, then lie to the end. I'm a great villain, but in order to survive, I didn't hesitate to become your mount. Don't let me be the last one to die. Then why don't I join the Burning Legion earlier? Although she was complaining, she did not slow down at all as she flew towards her target. It was not just them. In the snow-covered dragonbone waste of Northrend, the death dragons that had slept for countless years stood up and crawled out of the tomb that was supposed to be their eternal resting place. They raised their heads towards the sky and let out a silent cry. Countless death dragons used the shadow energy to give them the ability to fly and rushed into the sky, surging towards the dragon's rest shrine. Because there was a giant portal on the surface of the planet that led directly to the void battlefield. The third-generation Lich King of this era, once the strongest Holy Knight Uther, was riding on the largest bone dragon. He led the bone dragon army and flew side by side with the live dragons from the dragon's rest shrine. Even if they were facing a super huge fallen titan that could not be matched by mortal power, he would still lead the charge. Mere dragons, no matter how many there were, could not be a match for a true titan. However, the group of dragons swept past the void battlefield and flew towards the direction of Sargeras' head without hesitation. On the other side of the planet's orbit, the huge Izeron fortress moved its orbit for the first time since the day it was built. In the huge and spacious command center, only the wizards who had become spirits were busy operating the fortress. In the commander's seat, Archmage Khadgar, who had a difficult life and should have become the planet's guardian, was smiling. As the core of the magic net and the disciple of the astral wizard Mediv, he had the ability to let his spirit escape to another planet in the universe. But here he was born an Azeroth man, and he would die an Azeroth ghost. That's right. Even if he was walking towards destruction, there would still be a final warrior in this world. In the tomb of Sargeras, Kil'jaeden regretted it. Because after a short pause, all the Guardians, God of the Wilderness and Alliance heroes once again attacked him. What? You bunch of idiots? You're all facing despair and destruction. Why don't you beg for mercy? Kneel. All of you kneel. Lord Sargeras and I are magnanimous. As long as you pledge loyalty to the Burning Legion, you can continue to live. Of course, Kil'jaeden had thought of protecting himself. Otherwise he wouldn't have wanted to run in the first place. However, he, who had never failed in the past 25,000 years, had repeatedly hit a wall in Azeroth in a short 36 years. All kinds of conspiracies had failed, and even his most trusted assistants, the Eridar Gemini, had defected to that hateful Duke Marcus. The continuous failures had caused his mind to become morbid and twisted. He was too eager to see these enemies who had once given him failure and frustration kneel at his feet. It was this obsession that destroyed his last chance of survival. He did not run away immediately, which gave Odin the opportunity to throw a powerful spear of light, which shattered his portal. Chapter 2081. No. You can't do this. Do you think you will have a good ending after destroying Master Sargeras' most powerful servant? Kil'jaeden screamed crazily as he waved his claws and cast one powerful evil spell after another. Unfortunately, it was useless. Awu, son, look at your dad's heroic dash. Wolf God Goldring was the first to fearlessly pounce on Kil'jaeden's wings. *T. I don't have a father like you. My father is Lang Rin. William didn't back down at all. His anger as a warrior exploded, allowing him to leap 50 meters into the air. When he reached the highest point, he held his two swords upside down and slashed at Kil'jaeden's red wings from top to bottom. Ah! Kil'jaeden roared. Kil'jaeden waved his evil claws trying to beat up these two annoying guys, who knew that the powerful Frost Guardian Hodier didn't want to talk to him, and threw a turtle god Tortola at him. The large turtle shell felt like a large slipper, and it smashed onto Kil'jaeden's face, causing his nose to bleed on the spot. Just as the egg was trying to get rid of the big turtle pressing on his face, the bear monster brother Yusak rushed over and hugged his two legs tightly. Yes, he really hugged his legs. Of course, while hugging him he used his sharp teeth to bite the demon's hooves. Ah! In a panic, Kil'jaeden saw Odin's holy light sword and Thorim's thunder hammer coming at him. He had no choice but to activate an evil shield to strengthen his arms and take the two attacks head-on. The price he paid was that his torso was wide open, and his legs involuntarily knelt under the super heavy pressure. Off you go. Gavin Rad, who had been with Duke for too long and had learned the Heavenly Dynasty accent, activated the new wind sword and sent the huge crystal dwarf, Magni Bronzebeard, flying like a cannonball towards Kil'jaeden's face, which had just gotten rid of Tortola. The Egg Brother was also a fierce person. Seeing that he couldn't dodge or defend, he bit Magni's shoes. If it were any other hero, they would probably have been chicken-flavored, crunchy, on the spot. Magni was a demigod of the earth. His crystalline body was extremely hard. On the spot, it became tasteless and the teeth were broken. The egg broke two of its fangs on the spot. Woo woo woo. This was only the beginning, not the end. The Draenei hero Malad swung the Holy Paladin artifact, Hand of Silver, towards Kil'jaeden's neck. The egg was terrified, so it didn't care about anything else. It tilted its head and used one of its whiskers that looked like ding-ding to block the attack. Unexpectedly, one after another came. Saidan Dathrahan, one of the 5 Silver Saints who had just carried Merid, waved the Holy Knight artifact, Flame of Justice, which had a special appearance, and struck it toward the sky. The egg's chin was smashed upward, revealing its crimson neck. At this time Tyrion Fordring's Ashbringer made the first slash. Resplendent golden light illuminated the entire hall. Unfortunately, even someone as powerful as the Ashbringer could not cut through Kil'jaeden's neck, which was densely covered in dark energy and greatly strengthened defense. It didn't matter, there was still the next contestant. Turalyon waved the Quell Zarim, inherited from Anduin Lothar, the #1 warrior of Azeroth, and slashed with all his strength. The past was like smoke in the vast sky. Back then, the dark portal was opened because of Kill Jaden's malicious plot. In the elven forest, a brave warrior held up the Quell Azarim and said, "No," to the invaders. 36 years had passed, and the old warrior who once held this peerless artifact had passed away many years ago. The next master of his holy sword, who had inherited his will, stood in front of this schemer and waved the last sword that symbolized resistance. This was more like a cycle of karma. Where there is a cause, there is an effect. Where there is a beginning, there is an end. When Kill Jaden's ugly crimson head flew into the air and spun in the air, the commander of the Burning Legion was still in disbelief. No. Impossible. Odin directly stabbed the sword into Kill Jaden's bleeding neck, ending the last chance of survival for the criminal leader. If Argus still could not deal with it, perhaps in 10 or 100 years, this evil demon would appear in front of the people of Azeroth again, spreading fear and despair. But, at this moment, a voice was broadcast to all channels in the world through the magic network that connected all of Azeroth. It was a triumphant voice that felt like it could make people gnash their teeth in anger at any time. Yo, my fellow people of Azeroth. If you long for a miracle, then please long for it to the end. If you are willing to worship a hero, then please worship until the end. If you are willing to believe in Duque, then please believe in him until the end. Duke Marcus, when have I disappointed you? Not in the past. Not now. Not in the future. Yes, that's right. I Duque am so handsome. As the last word fell, the large virtual images that appeared on all the magic mirrors and even projected on the clouds were all of Duque's face. Perhaps the curve of this face was relatively ordinary, but it still had a bit of a temperament, and it was still a little short of being handsome. However, a confident smiling face of the Alliance commander was undoubtedly the greatest stimulant that could give the soldiers and the people in this desperate situation. From the establishment of the Alliance until now, as long as Duque smiled and said, "No problem," then there would be no problem. This was already an ironclad law. The meaning of victory represented by this smile had long been deeply ingrained in the hearts of all existences. In the image, Duque appeared in the tomb of Sargeras. In front of him, an illusory image of a great demon was struggling in midair. It was the soul of Kill Jaden, one of the main culprits. "Dear Kill Jaden, where else do you want to go to resurrect? Look at what I have here." In Duque's hand was a demon statue that did not seem special. It was the size of a palm, but it looked exactly like Kill Jaden. No. Impossible. Isn't this thing with Argus the Terminator? Kill Jaden's soul was terrified. He's a fallen titan. You can't defeat him. Duque shrugged. That's right. Even if I become a true god, I can't be a match for a titan. If the titans of the Pantheon lend me their power, that's another matter. Argus the Terminator was, after all, a flawed titan whose power had been castrated. With the help of the veteran titans led by Amon Thul, destroying him was just a matter of a snap of the fingers. Only a titan could deal with a titan. This sentence seemed to be correct until this moment. Kill Jaden was afraid. He was terrified. Although his boss, President Sargeras, was above this planet, distant water could not put out a nearby fire. If Duque wanted to destroy him, all he had to do was crush the statue that contained his soul core. As if talking to himself, Duque smiled and said, "You don't want to be destroyed? Sure. You can try begging me. Maybe I'll be merciful and accept your surrender like I accepted the Eridar Gemini." Wait, Duque, you can't let him go. The group of guardians was anxious. On the contrary, a group of mortal heroes had malicious expressions on their faces as they waited to watch the show. Kill Jaden knew that it was probably a trap, and he knew that the other party was most likely teasing him. However, his shameless desire to live erupted. The egg's twisted soul cried. "I beg you, Master Duque." It sounds quite nice. Unfortunately, my ears aren't very good. It's probably because Argus has too much dust and it's blocking my ears." Duque made a gesture of picking his ears. With that, there was a cracking sound. The dignified commander of the Burning Legion, Kill Jaden, fell into endless darkness. His consciousness was completely annihilated and he disappeared from this universe forever. Chapter 2082. Kill Jaden was dead. This was a small ending, not the final destination. That huge figure across the sky was still a hurdle that the entire planet couldn't cross. No one knew how to deal with a real titan. In the sky, every warrior who was ready to fight to the death stopped and looked at Duque, the superhero who had miraculously killed his way into the enemy's lair, pulled out Kill Jaden's soul core and killed the egg. Everyone wanted to see what other tricks Duque, who was famous for having countless backups, had. As expected, Duke took out another soul sculpture from his bosom. Duque looked up at the sky and waved the thing that was the same as Sargeras. Yo, Sargeras, what do you think? As soon as the provocative words fell, a cluster of huge light cannons fell from space. Unparalleled power, incomparably precise control of power. The entire roof of Sargeras' tomb was blasted away and turned into dust, but on Duque's floor, neither the Guardians nor the mortal heroes were hurt. The huge green flaming eye blinked in the sky, and an earth-shattering voice, like a death sentence from above the 9 heavens, spread to the mortal world. Even if you destroy my soul core, I won't die. Because I'm a Titan. Sargeras didn't attack immediately, proving that he was still cautious. Duque curled his lips. But if you destroy it, you'll be hurt too. Yes. If you dare to do that, I'll really destroy planet Azeroth. Well, it sounded like a kidnapper had kidnapped a hostage. In order to prevent the vicious kidnapper surnamed Du from killing the hostage, the negotiator Sargeras finally softened his tone a little. Duque showed an expression of caring for the mentally retarded. Let me think, you'll probably promise that as long as I return your soul core, you won't step foot on Azeroth for 10,000 years, right? You can even recruit me to be the new commander of the Burning Legion and lead billions of demons? Sargeras was speechless. He was really going to say that. Don't joke around. Don't try to fool me with a lie that even you don't believe. Mr. Sa's cold snort affected the clouds in the sky, creating a Titan-style storm. Although Duque had secretly ordered all the warships to evacuate the moment he returned, many warships were still consumed by the storm and crashed. Sargeras said coldly, since you have no intention of negotiating, what are you waiting for? Destroy the soul core. I'm in a daze, of course, because... Duque deliberately kept her in suspense. Billions of people around the world held their breaths in the live broadcast as they listened to the words that would decide the fate of the entire planet Azeroth. Who knew that Duque wouldn't *King continue? A mortal who had ascended to godhood, and a near-invincible ultimate existence in the universe, were looking at each other across the distance between heaven and earth. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, half a minute. Finally, someone couldn't hold it in any longer and gasped for air. Sargeras' 2 sky-wide flaming eyes stared at Duque. In the end, he was startled by something else. You lied to me. Duque burst out laughing. Yes, he lied to Sargeras. He didn't continue because he wanted to stall for time. Waiting for who? Wasn't it the Pantheon? After 25,000 years, the Pantheon, which once ruled this universe, was stronger than gods, and stood at the top of the universe, finally appeared in front of the mortals again. As a Titan, Sargeras was already huge. However, the Pantheon, which could accommodate Titan's daily life, was even more unimaginably huge. Even through the optical telescope in Iserlund Fortress, one couldn't see the whole Pantheon. The Pantheon was so huge that even Duque felt tongue-tied. This incomparably huge Pantheon, which felt like it could fit into Du's home solar system, was really the first miracle of all time. Just by appearing, the energy shield around the Pantheon destroyed all the Burning Legion starships around planet Azeroth. They were like moths drawn to a flame and were burned to ashes in an instant. Further away, the 100,000-kilometer-tall Pantheon's door suddenly opened. Several huge beings of the same size as Sargeras came out, and stood side by side on the steps of the Pantheon's door with complicated golden patterns. Unlike Sargeras, their bodies were translucent. Obviously, even though they had saved a considerable part of their bodies and essence from Argus' burning throne, they were still not a complete Titan. However, compared to the bitter situation of only having their souls left, they were much better. Supreme Father, Ansur. Life-Giver, Iona. Raging Belair, Gorgans. Dreamweaver, Norganon. Sculptor, Kaz, Garoth. Avenger, Agrama. Other than these 6 veteran Titans, there was another translucent Titan who was tied up by Kaz, Garoth with chains, kneeling at the side. That was obviously Argus the Terminator, who was supposed to guard Sargeras' home. Ansur spoke, and his loud soul voice pierced through the void of space, resounding in this region, and also spreading to every corner of planet Azeroth. Sargeras, are you still going to come to your senses? Come to my senses? What did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. Only destruction is eternal. That is the true ultimate happiness. Sargeras was still lying on planet Azeroth. There was an invisible shell on the surface of the planet that was resisting and supporting his planet-level body. In the name of the Supreme Father of the Pantheon, I sentence you to eternal imprisonment. With that, Amonsur's gaze transcended space and Sargera's head in front of him, and landed on a spot. Duque knew that Amon-Sur was looking at him. In the name of the Covenant of Eternity, Duque's lips parted slightly. As if they were murmuring, all the titans of the Pantheon, including Amon-Sur, were chanting the same sentence. In the name of the Covenant of Eternity. That's right, the last step of the covenant that Duque signed with the Pantheon was for Duque to destroy Sargera's soul core, making him powerless and weak. Otherwise, with Sargera's domineering combat power, he could successfully overturn the entire Pantheon 25,000 years ago, and he could do it again 25,000 years later. No, Duque. How dare you? In the sky, Sargera's roar echoed throughout the universe. A moment ago Duque crushed the egg of an egg. A moment later, Duque crushed the core of Sargera's soul. This was really a subtle move. Well done. Amon-Sur stroked his beard in satisfaction. At the same time, a gem brighter than a star shot out a beam of light above the Pantheon's door. It was like the light of the birth of all things. In the next instant, Sargera's planet-level body shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.